Thank you, Madam Acting Speaker. I firstly wish to extend my condolences to the families, all too many, who have suffered the great distress of losing loved ones due to the recent deluge. I know that there will be coroner's reviews of a number of these matters, but the circumstances have to be looked at very honestly to find the best ways that we can keep people safe in the future. But the distress that people are feeling is incredible. I also wish to acknowledge the great work of our emergency service personnel, the volunteers and the professional operators and ordinary citizens, from the SES through to our fire and emergency rescue and police, and so many people who worked together tirelessly to do their best to keep people safe and to help in the recovery efforts. We have been also addressing the issues about the need for the review that's to be done to really take into account all factors, not just within the terms of reference that have been flagged by the government, but also into betterment, also into the need to look at how we ensure that going forward there are greater mitigations wherever possible to lessen the impact upon people from events such as this. I want to table a photo that I actually took on the 28th of February of the Perrin Park, Brisbane, where there is a proposed school site and it's well and truly underwater. And I find it extraordinary that when the Deputy Premier is talking about trying to look at the planning schemes and avoiding building houses that will flood, that the state government is clearly not taking their own advice and has a proposal to put a new school into a area that clearly goes underwater. I took that photo because I couldn't get home. The Bruce Highway was caught, like a number of us. We were on our way home and the Bruce was cut at King John Creek, north of Caboolture. But that was a small thing to play. I was safe. My family was safe on the other side. But many people weren't safe during those extraordinary floods that were cutting the Bruce Highway and cutting many roads. But that photo shows that if the government is serious about building back better and not putting things into floodplains, they wouldn't be building looks like a swimming school in Perrin Park. It's just nuts. It's crazy. We do have to be very serious about how we treat our floodplains. I live in an area where a lot of my community is on a floodplain, and it is complex and it's difficult. And we see houses that do flood and others that potentially will flood in a major event. And this is an issue that we also need to tackle because the planning regulations, they now require a certain amount of fill for people to put their houses there. And then there's a patchwork quilt where houses are built at different heights and those who are on the lower level are left with the overland flow where they can potentially have it pulled in their way. I flag these issues as all flood mitigations for some of the regulations have other implications. And I'm saying that we need to ensure that there is a smarter approach to planning where the mitigations improve it for all and don't create an adverse impact for those who are left behind. And I raise that, and it's relevant in regard to that school site in Brisbane, because the state government probably think they're going to go and put a whole lot of fill in there and build buildings upon it and fill things up. That means that water potentially in the future will go elsewhere. It will be pushed elsewhere into other communities. So let's have flood mitigation that keeps the community safe but doesn't push the problem onto somebody else. We've got to get serious about how we address the fact that we have people living on floodplains and there are others potentially seeking to build more on those floodplains, and the mitigations that are talked about have to keep people safe and not cause an unintended consequence maybe, but push the problem elsewhere. When the Nambour bypass was built years ago, it failed in a section because they got the flood modelling wrong. The Sunshine Motorway, when they built it initially north of the river, they got the flood modelling wrong. And there were adverse impacts of the flooding that occurred, and they had to go back, certainly with the Nambour bypass, and fix it. Flooding is a serious issue. It's going to get more complex. We've got to be very careful when you're talking about putting major infrastructure into areas that already flood. Speaker. Great attention must be taken.
I call the member for McAllister.